I remember them giving me this speech, and in my head, I'm a college student. I'm not going to stop drinking just because I spent the night in jail. Like, what? That's ridiculous. So I just remember it was like the parents on Charlie Brown. Wah, wah. That's all I heard because all I'm thinking about is going out tonight. There was no thought in my mind of like, well, I have to stop drinking because this happened.
Welcome to this week's episode of Young and Sober. Today, I have a very special guest on, my friend Sarah. Sarah is someone that I met in recovery and has been a very good and close friend for me throughout this entire process. Do you want to go ahead and tell them when your sobriety date is?
It's January 14th, 2025.
Do you want to tell us a little bit about where your addiction started?
Yeah, so I started drinking when I was like 14 or 15 as an experimental thing, high school. I was hanging out with all the popular kids and I started drinking with them. I think the first time that I got drunk is when my addiction started. A lot of people say that like they had their first drink or started using, and it wasn't until later on that they really went all in. But I think even at a young age, as soon as I started drinking, I went balls to the wall. I went all the way. Like the first time that I was drinking, there's videos of me like slurring my speech. I woke up, I didn't remember. I was blacking out already.
How did you guys even get your hands on alcohol at 14?
So my friend's mom was never at the house.
Ah.
So it was just, oh, it's there.
And she'd just keep restocking it because she wouldn't really realize.
Yeah, because her older brother was living in the house with them. So it was just assumed that he was drinking it.
Do you remember the first time you picked up a drink?
Yeah, so I was at the friend's house that we used to take alcohol from. And I don't know what like led up to it. I was like 14 and my memory is shot. But I remember she lived in a country club and we were walking around on the golf course and like drinking on the golf course. Like it was the first time I was drinking. And I remember tasting alcohol for the first time. And it wasn't the taste that got me hooked, but I would think of the taste every time I would reminisce on how I felt until I became addicted to the feeling and the taste of it because I put two and two together, if that makes
Yeah.
sense.
And what was that feeling when you first got drunk?
Freedom.
Really?
Yeah, so I'm like a very anxious person, and even in sobriety, I'm still anxious, but that's just genetics. At 14, I was so unsure of myself. I did not know who I was, I didn't know who I wanted to be. Drinking and putting like a haze over life was top tier. It was like, I want to forget about who I think that I am, and I want to feel fuzzy and just live life to its fullest. So with that blanket, I was flying. Like I was free.
I feel like when you do deal with anxiousness or depression or whatever it is, it's like alcohol just sweeps right in there.
So I wasn't diagnosed with anxiety or depression for again a really long time, pretty much until I was in therapy. But it would calm my anxiety, but it would deepen my depression. I'd be much more calm at the end of the night before we were going to bed or whatever it was after a night of drinking. I would hit such a low. But because I was still in that like fuzzy, happy feeling, it was like my body was like happy, but my mind was not. And
Yeah.
so it was like a battle. And I was trying to figure out like, what the perfect little mix of how much can I drink to feel good mentally and physically. I never found that.
No, I don't think anyone ever finds that.
No, no.
What were the hangovers like? What was that experience like?
So I don't even call them hangovers anymore as I look back. I look at them as withdrawals.
That's what I call them
Yeah,
too.
because when I was younger, they were definitely just little hangovers. I'd feel fuzzy on the weekends or whatever, wake up feeling still drunk. But as I turned 18, I was drinking so much, and I'm a very like thin person. Not take much for me to get drunk, and I would drink like twice of what I should have been just to feel something. And so I would be waking up the next day and be full body like shaking. I would throw up for like hours. And it was like my mind would just tell me that if you just drink again, this will go away.
So, throughout your high school, how did it start to change and evolve as you got older?
Okay, so the older that I got, I think I just got more comfortable sneaking around and drinking with my friends. Because at first it was like, oh, this is new, this is fun, this is exciting. And then as I got older, 15, 16, 17, going through high school, it became every weekend thing. I would go to my friends' houses to get drunk. And I would look forward to these things. I was a really good kid up until I graduated high school. Even though I was drinking on the weekends and doing all these things and going to all these parties and stuff, I was a straight A student, kept my grades up. During the week, I wouldn't drink, I wouldn't go anywhere. It really turned from weekends into weeks over the summer. When I was 17, COVID hit, so I wasn't in school anymore. We did online after April, and into my senior year, I chose to do online school, and that's when it became weekly, like, every day that I could drink, I would.
Were there ever any moments that really scared you that you thought maybe I should stop drinking, but you just never had that push to actually stop drinking?
I think after I graduated high school, I had a lot of those moments, because once I graduated, I had a gap year before I went to actual college down in Tampa, and I was getting into physical altercations with my friends over my drinking.
That's crazy because
Yeah.
Sarah is like kindest human being ever. So to hear her say that is kind of crazy.
Yeah, every time I tell people that, "There's no way." It was so bad. I remember this one time, I think I was 18 or 19, and I was trying to fight my best friend that I've known since I was 5. She kicked me out of her house, obviously. I had to call my brother to come and drive me home, and that was, I think, the first night that somebody called me an alcoholic.
What was your reaction to that?
I was
Just
so mad. I was like, "I'm not an alcoholic. Alcoholics are only these old men. I'm not an old man. I don't drink every day. I can handle my alcohol if I try." I didn't admit it for a really long time after that.
that's so valid. I feel like on social media it's starting to get better, but the picture of what an alcoholic looks like and the emotions you have to start to process when you finally call yourself an alcoholic and understanding that it's not just like an old man. There's so many more categories
Yeah.
than like just one.
And it was a lot of, like, self-reflection that I had to do. I went to USF when I was 19 in 2022, and that's, like, the first time that I'd really started going to therapy, and I feel like that was, like, the kickstart of a lot of self-reflection that I needed to do in
Yeah.
order to admit that I was an alcoholic.
And you were still drinking through that
Oh, yeah.
process of
Oh, yeah.
because that's how I was. It was the
Mhm.
same thing.
Forced me to talk about things that, like, I didn't wanna talk about, that I had never talked about before. I never really talked about my drinking. If somebody brought it up, I was just like, "Everybody else drinks.
Yeah.
I'm 19. I'm gonna go out and party. I'm gonna do whatever I want." But if I had just stopped and looked around me, myself in comparison to everybody else around me, I would have definitely seen that I was different.
And when you're young too, it's really easy to just pass it off as like just a party face.
Like, people around me would sit there and be like, "Well, you're an alcoholic," and I would just turn it back on them. I'm like, "If I'm an alcoholic, you're an alcoholic."
Deflection.
Yeah,
You gotta
exactly.
love it. And through
Yeah.
that phase, how many days a week were you drinking and how much were you consuming?
Probably when I was 19, I was probably drinking 2 or 3 days a week. It wasn't that bad, but when I did drink, it was very, very heavy.
So would you categorize yourself as more of a binge drinker then or
Yeah,
yeah.
definitely. Especially later in life, I would drink, like, every day for, like, weeks at a time.
Did you ever have any other things besides alcohol? Was it just alcohol for you?
It was mostly just alcohol. I tried other things every once in a while, but it always led back to me just drinking. And when I was drinking, like, I would black out and do, like, Coke or something, but it was rare. There was, like, a 2 or 3-month period when I was 18 or 19 that I did it for those 2 months, but other than that, I didn't really do much. That's something that I'm really grateful for, is that I was terrified of drugs. It was so etched into me that drugs were so bad that I was like, "Okay, everybody's right."
And alcohol is just as dangerous and yet
Mhm.
it is the most normalized substance.
Yeah, and
That and
it's
weed.
legal everywhere. As soon as you turn 21, it's just balls to the wall. You can do whatever you want with it, you know?
Yeah. And even in some places when you're 18. Get so pissed out when I was younger why we couldn't be 16 in America and now like it wouldn't change a damn thing for me and I can't drink anyways.
Literally. No. I get it.
In the final run of your alcoholism, what were the many rock bottoms throughout? What were the things that was leading up to the point where you're like, I cannot do this anymore?
So, I got arrested. I went to yeah. In August of 2023. I went to USF down in Tampa from, 2022 to 2023. In between those 2 years, at the end of the summer, I had gone to the beach with a bunch of my friends, and I was drinking all day, and I came back. I got into a hit and run. I ran into the back of somebody, and I left the scene. I don't know how I didn't think that they would catch me. They found me, obviously. I spent the night in jail. That was the scariest thing ever.
I cannot picture you in jail.
Oh my God. I had an old lady steal my breakfast. Yeah.
That's cutthroat.
I was so drunk when I went in there. I spent the entire night like crying,
Uh,
hungover, waking up. I don't think I slept, but I just remember being in this rock hard bed with half a pillow, and I was like, this is it. I can't wait to get out of here and drink. But like, it was just like one of those moments where this really sucks, but oh well. I was just like, I'm never going to do something that stupid again. But it sucked. Looking back, I genuinely don't know how that made me turn my life around. But it's just, that's what alcohol does. No matter what you do, even though I thought that was my rock bottom, I had to keep digging.
really.
I went back to USF a few days after that. I just gotten back out of jail and I had to go back to classes. And my parents sat me down in my college apartment and were like, you have to stop drinking. You just went to jail. You cannot drink this year. You need to be on your best behavior. And I remember them giving me this speech. And in my head, I'm a college student. I'm not going to stop drinking just because I spent the night in jail. Like, what? That's ridiculous. So I just remember it was like the parents on Charlie Brown. Wah, wah. That's all I heard because all I'm thinking about is going out tonight. There was no like thought in my mind of like, well, I have to stop drinking because this happened. And I think I like had an inkling, like there was a little bit of self reflection where I was like, okay, I definitely have a problem, but it wasn't something that I was ready to admit fully. It was like 2 months before I ended up dropping out of college. I did not listen to my parents, obviously, and I drank every single night that year that I was in college. And by October of that year, I got into a fight, physical altercation with my roommates, and I had to leave the next day, and I
Oh,
dropped out of college.
that's horrible.
Yeah.
Did you find yourself through addiction saying, "Oh my God, I would never do that," and then going and doing that
Oh,
exact thing?
100%. Yeah. Yeah.
Being like, "Oh, I'll never drive drunk."
So I had to write this like goodbye letter to alcohol when I was in rehab the third time. And I think one of the things that I said was like, within a year, I went from believing that I would never drive drunk to knowing the route to take to safely, quote unquote, drive drunk. So it was like I knew which roads to take to avoid like traffic and cops and things like that.
What are the next sequence of events that happened that got you into your first rehab? Play me through. You went to jail, you dropped out of college, two very big life events, although far apart, like very big life events. What happened?
So this was in October 2023. I dropped out of college. My parents, they came and picked me up, and they brought me home, and they said that I couldn't go straight home, that I had to go to pretty much like a mental hold. They didn't really know what to do with me because they knew that if they brought me home, I would just create chaos. And they obviously knew that I wasn't going to stop drinking. So they brought me to the Vines. It's like a Baker Act Center, I guess, but I don't know. And I spent what I thought was just going to be like 3 days there, but I spent 5.
Detox, essentially.
Yeah, yeah. And it was awful. I was just like locked in this room. There was no TVs, there was no anything. There was a lot of people that had a lot of mental illnesses there. So there was people screaming through the night. And I was hungover, so I was like, these people screaming, I'm not having this. And I feel like it didn't help me at all because I was just getting more and more angry.
Yeah.
And I remember I would call my mom every night and be like, you have to get me out of here. But because I like self-admitted, I was 20. So I self-admitted myself. I wasn't on like a Baker Act, so I wasn't out in 72 hours. It was like they had to evaluate me to get me out, if that makes sense. By like the fourth day, I was done, so done. And I had one of the top guys at the place come and talk to me because I was like, I'm leaving. Whether you guys like it or not, I'm leaving. Because I was crazy. I finally somehow got them to like sign me a bunch of paperwork, get me out of there. So that was 5 days of doing that. After I got out, I did tell my parents I'm going to try my best to stop drinking. I'm going to dial it back at least. And I spent the next 2 or 3 months kind of dry. I don't even consider it sober. But I do remember on New Year's, so from 2023 to 24, like that New Year's, I had champagne with my parents. They didn't mean anything like ill by it. They were just, it's New Year's, you're 20. So I had champagne with them and I went balls to the wall again.
This is why you can't just have a fun little cocktail because
Yeah.
you think you'll be fine.
Yeah, I feel like it was my higher power being like, yeah, you can have this because you need to see what's going to happen. And that night I was trying to sneak in because my parents have this outside bar type thing. and it has a lock on it now. I was trying to sneak into it. My mom caught me, and it became this huge thing, and she sat me down. She was like, "This is a thing now, right?" And that sucked. But February 1st of 2024, I turned 21. I had two fakes when I was in college, and I got them taken away when I was arrested. So, like, this whole time, I'm not really drinking because I couldn't get it. So, as soon as I turned 21, we went up to Georgia to spend the weekend there or whatever. And when we came back, I started drinking so heavily, so fast. I remember I was living with my parents at the time, and I was sneaking in seltzers in this backpack and in my purse. I was hiding the cans under my pillow. It
Yeah.
was so bad. This happened for a month and a half. And I think my parents, they figured, but they couldn't catch me until halfway through March. My dad came in to wake me up, and there's just cans like surrounding me. And I woke up and they were mad. I was mad. I started getting really aggressive with both my parents. They called an ambulance to come and pick me up so that I could go like detox at the hospital. And I was like, I'm not going. This is ridiculous. Me and my mom got physical with each other. It was bad. And I even tried running away from the house. I remember my dad took my phone and he's like, you can't go anywhere without your phone. So I took my laptop and I packed a bag and I was trying to leave. Finally, the ambulance came. My parents were like, if you don't go, you're going to lose everything. And so I finally went to this hospital, went and detoxed overnight. There was a doctor that came in and he was giving me the whole spiel of, you have a problem. This is what can happen if you keep continuing to drink. The entire time I was just like zoned out. I'm like, oh my God, please, I'm so hungover. I just want to go lay in bed. Full ignorance. I was
Yeah.
so selfish. It was awful. I was lying to the doctors there because my parents obviously told them why I was coming in and I was being very secretive. I was like, I'm not that as drunk as they said. And then they came out with my like blood alcohol levels. And they were like, you're hammered.
Wasted.
You are. There's no way that you should be forming complete sentences
You
right now. And I was like, that's crazy. That's got to be a lie.
Yeah.
I just spent the entire night just like lying to people, lying to doctors. And so the next day I like detoxed, whatever. And then I went back to my parents' house and they were like, you're going to rehab. There was definitely some pushback from me. I was like, I really don't want to. But they had told me whenever I turned 21, they said, if this gets worse, you're going to rehab. So I like fully knew the consequences of my actions. I knew what they were going to be, but I was like choosing to ignore them.
Really quickly, how far apart were the first detox and the second detox?
From October to March.
Okay. So
Yeah.
pretty close together.
Yeah.
So you leave this next detox facility. What happens?
So my parents found this. It was Transformations here in Ocala. They were like, "You're gonna go here," and I was very against it. I was like, "There's no way that I'm going to this place." And the way that they like ended up getting me to go, because that they said you only have to be there for a week, and I was like, "Okay, that's not too bad. I can just go hang out at this place for a week, whatever, get some therapy, have some alone time." When I got there, within like 24 hours, I sat down at lunch when I first got there. And this guy looked at me and he goes, so, what are you in for? And I didn't know what to say. I drink a lot. And I just started bawling. It was the first time I admitted anything. Within the first 3 days, you meet your therapist and all the things. And I remember my therapist was like, you should go to this meeting tonight. It's like on the property. So I went and we went around and introduced ourselves. This is the first time I'm about to say that I'm an alcoholic. And so I said, I'm Sarah. I'm an alcoholic. And cried again. I literally was like uncontrollably sobbing and I said that's all that I can say.
The first time that I admitted it, I don't think people realize how it's like a weight has been lifted, but it's also like a weight has been added. I don't know
Yeah.
how to explain it. It's such a humanizing experience when you first identify as an alcoholic because you're really admitting that you have a problem and not only to yourself, but to those around you.
Mhm.
And I think sometimes I had to admit it out loud in order to start convincing myself that I actually believed that I was an alcoholic.
As I talked about earlier, I had a lot of trouble trying to fit in. I was always trying to be somebody that I wasn't. And so when I finally said it, it was like a part of me was put together. So I
Yeah.
was like, okay, this is the start of this journey that I'm about to go on. And it felt relieving. It was really weird.
Yeah. What was the experience of rehab like?
So my first rehab, I was there for 60 days. And I remember after the first week, I still kept telling people, I'm just going to be here for a week. And everybody kind of looked at me like I was crazy. And I was like, I don't know what everybody's on about. My parents are going to come and get me in a week. After a month or so, I saw my therapist like once or twice a week. And I remember looking at her and being like, I need to stay here longer. I'm
Yeah.
not ready to go back out. And at this point, I was doing a lot of trauma work. I had met this guy in rehab,
Mm.
which we'll get to that. I had made friends. And so it was honestly fun. It was a little bit trauma bonding with these random strangers, but it was also nice because I was actually talking about all the things. Because I had mentioned that I was in therapy before, but I was lying to my therapist heavily. I did not want to talk about all the stuff. And I knew that I needed to, but I didn't know how to start. So finally being able to have space with people that are like me to talk about my feelings and not get judged.
That's a game changer.
Being in like groups and learning about like why we do the things that we do and having space to share our thoughts and feelings and things like that. It was like a whole new world to me that I had no idea existed. As much as I hated it in the moment, I'm so glad that my parents pushed me to go.
You had mentioned earlier about your parents, you need to stop. And it is heartbreaking to watch parents of kids who are alcoholics and they're not alcoholics because it's like they don't understand that this is literally not me. I have an allergy. I have
Yeah.
no control over what's happening right now. If I could quit drinking today, I would 100% do it. But for some reason, I never had the tools or capabilities to be able to do that. And so
Exactly.
I can only imagine what your parents are going through. And then through rehab, it's very eye-opening.
Yeah.
Like, my mom went through hell and high water when I had to go to rehab. It was hard.
Yeah. It took a toll on my parents, but they stuck by me through everything, and I'm so grateful for that because they shouldn't have. I'm really grateful for my parents because they pushed me through every time. No matter what, they were always there for me. And like they would obviously threaten to take away my stuff or leave me on the side of the road or whatever it was that they would threaten. They didn't mean it. I didn't know that at the time, but looking back, I'm like, they had to tell me those things. Like,
They had no other choice. They just wanted you to survive.
exactly. Yeah.
You touched on this. You just brought this up a second ago. Friendships. By the time you hit rehab, what were your friendships like? Were you able to maintain any friendships or relationships with other human beings? What did that look like?
I lost all of my friends. The first time I went off to college was right after I got into my first physical altercation, and everybody around me saw that I had a problem and nobody wanted anything to do with me. At that time, I was so mad. I was like, whatever, I'm just gonna go to college and forget you guys, make all these new friends and everything. I didn't really keep in contact with them. I just lost like everybody.
What happened to all the friends that you were drinking with? Did they at some point just walk away because you had just taken it to another level?
Pretty much. Yeah, I think because once I went off to college, I feel like people found me leaving as like a way that they were able to get out of our friendship,
Mm.
which is totally, I get it. Looking back, I'm like, I would have ran a lot earlier than they did. I was crazy. But, but everybody just kind of walked away.
Yeah.
And I, at the moment, I was like, that's fine. I'll go find new friends.
Yeah.
I did not find new friends.
Did you have a easy time making friends, but a hard time keeping friends?
Yes.
Yeah.
Because like when I like first started drinking, I was super happy, friendly. I would be friends with everybody, and then by the end of the night, I'm like causing a ruckus.
Fist fighting people.
Yeah, literally, and like barking at strangers.
I could never imagine.
I was weird. Ah, so bad. I still have like anxiety.
I don't.
Think about all the things.
I really don't blame you because I have so much anxiety over some of the stuff I did because it's still within your first year of sobriety. That stuff is still so fresh. That was not that long ago. I'm completely a different person, but that was not that long ago.
Yeah, I'm not in contact with anybody that I used to like drink with or anything, and I don't really plan on reaching out to them because it wouldn't do either of us like any good.
Yeah, sometimes you just gotta walk away, let people go.
Yeah, because they do much better without me in their life, and I'm okay with that. They're okay with that. We're good.
You had mentioned about how you just wore a mask all the time. What did that look like for you?
So I would put this mask on as this very funny, outgoing. I still use humor to cope, but I would use humor to cope. I would try and be the funniest person and the loudest person in the room. This is something that I like hate that I did. But I used to pick on people I would pick on my friends and try and assert my dominance in a
Yeah.
way, you know what I mean? To try to make me seem like they're lesser than me because I was putting myself on this pedestal.
No,
I
I
don't know how to explain
completely
it.
get
Yeah.
it. I completely get what you mean.
So it was just like I was hiding everything about me by finding flaws in other people.
Yeah. And especially when you're dealing something with alcohol, it
Mhm.
amplifies everything.
Uh,
When you are untreated alcoholism, you are just as bad sober as you are drunk. The
mhm.
only difference is you can remember what you did when you were sober, but you don't remember what you did when you were drunk.
Exactly. Yeah.
Because the things that people told me about myself, like sober Sydney, while she was in alcoholism, I don't even recognize who that person was. I'm like, that doesn't sound like me, but it was.
Exactly.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
So the boy in rehab.
So, this is a horrible story. So, we met in rehab, obviously, and he lived down in South Florida. And so, when I got out of rehab, I got out of May. And so, I spent like the summer going back and forth between Ocala and down there and back here and up down there.
Wow, that's longer than my rehab romance lasted. Good for you.
Yeah, but it was awful. He was very verbally abusive, mentally unwell, not a safe person. But because I was so fresh into my recovery, I just latched on and trauma bonded with this man. I like needed him in order to stay sober. And I remember we got into this big fight in midsummer and I ended up drinking. I woke up the next morning. He was super mad at me. He was like, "Were you drinking?" I totally lied to him, even though there was no way that he would have believed me because I was drunk texting him very obviously. And I told him, I said, "No, I'm fine. I just drank some expired cough syrup."
Mm,
Yep. Yeah.
brilliant.
He was just super mad. He was like, "You definitely drank." And I was like, just fully in denial. I was like, I don't know how, but I'm going to make sure this man does not know that I drank. And within a week, I ended up telling him. But I was scared of him finding out. A month after that, I found out that he was using the entire time that we were out. So it was just a super unhealthy relationship. His dad found out that he was using and kicked him out of his house. I went down and picked him up. And then that night, we like ended up drinking together. It was just awful.
And this
So,
is 2024, right?
yeah,
When the professionals tell you not to date for the first year of sobriety, I'm going to
seriously.
suggest you to listen. You don't want to date people in your first year of
No, definitely
sobriety.
not. And
And
especially
it's
like, ugh.
so the relationship ended.
Mhm.
That was summer.
Like I said, we ended up drinking together as soon as he got kicked out of his house and I went and picked him up. And within a week, I was back in rehab. My parents found out like very quickly. My brother had to like come and kick this guy out of my house. Yeah, it got really bad. And the next day after this all happened, I was back at Transformations, the first one that I went to, and was just doing it all over again. So this was, I think, like August ish.
So this is another 30 or 60.
I was there again for the 60 days. Did all the same stuff.
Was there
Just
any like big things you pulled out of that place that like really helped you?
I learned a lot about that. I can't say it, dialectical behavioral therapy
Yeah.
there, which helped me a lot. Just the like idea that two things can exist at once put a whole new idea into my head because I was so beat down that like I had to call myself an alcoholic that I
Yeah.
forget that just because I'm an alcoholic doesn't mean I can't still be a good person. So that fact alone pushed me through a lot. I did EMDR therapy there.
Mm.
That helped a lot too. Just a lot of desensitization to a lot of the traumatic events before my alcoholism, which helped.
What was your reaction when you heard that you're 21 and you're never going to be able to pick up a drink for the rest of your life?
I was still like, there's no way. Like, even though I was doing all these things, I feel I was still like in my head in denial. I'm like, at some point, I'm gonna be able to drink. After I get over this, I'm gonna be able to drink. Everything's gonna be fine. I just have to get through this phase. Even after 2 stints of rehab, I
Yeah.
was like, well, I think towards the middle of the second one, I was starting to come to and be like, okay, no, really, I can't drink anymore. But I think the biggest reason that I came to that conclusion was because there was other people my age that were also there for alcoholism.
Yeah.
Because the first time I was there, it was a mental health and addiction facility, so there was a lot of people there just for mental health. And a lot of people that were there for addiction and alcoholism were older. So going in the second time, I had more people my age that were there for substances. So seeing that helped me be like, okay, I'm not alone. So it's more likely that I'm actually an alcoholic. I'm
Yeah.
never going to be able to drink again.
What was the scariest part about getting sober?
So definitely the judgment from other people. I always cared about what people thought about me, and I always tried to save face and do all the things to where even if I did something bad, I would go back and try and fix it so that I looked good still. When I got arrested, I was trying to do so much damage control because my mugshot got spread around here. People kept texting me. So I ended up posting on Snapchat. I was like, if you don't know me, stay out of my business, which just made people ask more questions. I was so scared about what everybody thought. There was a guy that I went to high school with, his mugshot went around and people were just talking about him. And I was like, I don't want to be like him. And everything that I was doing was just making it worse.
Yeah.
So whenever I went to rehab for the first time, I was just like, nobody can know. I don't care what happens, just nobody can know that I'm in rehab.
Because you thought you're going to be able to just resume life
Exactly.
once you got out.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
This is awful, but I was like, I don't want all these people that called me an alcoholic
To know
to
that I
be
would to know they
right.
were right.
Are you kidding me?
When did that viewpoint shift for you where you're just like, I don't care anymore?
So after I got out of rehab the second time, and I left rehab number 2 also in a relationship. Yeah. So this was a thing for me. This is like a
No
recurring
judgment
thing.
here.
Yeah.
No judgment.
We left together, and as soon as he got out, he relapsed. And he was drinking and using pretty much the entire time. I got out in the middle of November, and I stayed sober through the end of November and then all through December. And then on December 30th, I ended up going to a bar. Stupid idea. Well, it was my boyfriend at the time. He told me to come and play pool with him. And my addiction is in the back of my head. Do it. You're gonna drink, just go do it. You know what's gonna happen. Just go ahead and get it over with.
Yeah.
So I remember I walked into that bar and we were playing pool for a little bit. Both the people that I was with were drinking. And by the end of the night, I was slamming White Claws. I walked in there, honestly, almost conceited, cocky, oh, I'm not going to drink tonight. And by the end, I was absolutely flashed.
What was the maximum amount of time that you had put together?
I think that was the last time was 89 days.
So how many relapses?
I think 5 or 6. I had to keep going back out, which I don't recommend, but because it was rough. But I had to keep going back out. I had to continue to ruin my life because if I didn't, then there would be no proof that I was an alcoholic.
Yeah, it's like, am I absolutely sure that this is my only option?
Literally, yeah.
When you started going to meetings, what was your reaction when you did meetings in rehab?
I've only gone to meetings and stuff in rehab. When I was in rehab the second time and we started going to meetings off campus, and I was actually able to experience them in my hometown. So it was a lot easier because I was going to the meetings that I was going to be going to when I left. So the second time when I got out, I was going to a lot more meetings. I was probably going to 2 or 3 a week. And probably by the end of December, right before I relapsed, I just stopped going completely. So I relapsed in December.
Back to rehab?
Yep. I was on a 2-week bender, which is kind of my thing. I was definitely a binge drinker. So from December 29th or 30th until January 14th, I drank. Also
Could have won awards
seltzer.
for that kind
I
of
know.
drinking.
And seltzers were my thing.
Okay.
I never drank liquor because I was barely 21 when I first went to rehab. So I probably drank an entire case of seltzers every single day for those 17 days or whatever it was, 16. So I relapsed on December 29th or 30th. And I already blacked out so badly that I slept through New Year's.
Wow.
Yeah. So,
Wow.
yeah, I was planning to try and go out. Might as well go into bars and stuff before I try and get sober again. And I just passed out, never woke up until the next day. I also had a new puppy at this time. I was not taking care of her, which is awful. It breaks my heart looking back on it. She was pooping everywhere and I wasn't keeping any care of her at all. It was awful. So after those 2 weeks, I was going through such bad withdrawals. So about a week before my parents found out, there was a guy that had come back into my life from before my addiction was really bad, and he knew about how I was trying to get sober, how I'd been to rehab, all the things, and he Like, to say the least, he saved my life. This man, like, showed up at my house on January 5th or something and started, like, helping me clean. He was cleaning my house. He wasn't really enabling my behavior because he wanted me to stop, but there was no stopping me. He's pretty much kept me alive.
Yeah.
That's all he could do. And he is also the one that ended up calling my parents on January 11th or 12th and like
Ooh.
telling them the rehab that I first went to, like the first two times, it had shut down at like the at the end of the year sometime. So I had to go to experience a whole new rehab, which I was actually terrified of because I had been to this one twice before.
Comfortability at the first
Yeah.
one. You knew the environment, you knew what the pace is like, and
Mhm.
changing that around is
It's
so
terrifying. There was like 2 days of me just waiting around my parents' house, like waiting for this insurance stuff to go through. And during this time, I genuinely was going through the worst withdrawals I have ever experienced. I was like dry heaving because I couldn't throw up, I couldn't eat. I was shaking so bad that it literally felt like my whole body was like seizing.
Was
Like
there
it,
any point where you're like, I should just keep drinking until I go?
oh yeah, I wanted to so badly. So they're like looking at me. I'm like pale, like on my deathbed on their couch. And I was like, they're like, I gotta do something. And so they ended up taking me to the hospital. And I spent the night in the hospital going through a detox, all the things. They were giving me fluids, all the things. And then the next day I ended up going to rehab because I
And
could not have waited. Oh, it was awful.
we ended up at the same rehab, but like a
Mhm.
couple months apart. We both ended up at the refuge. Man, is that a place to go?
Yeah. Talk about trauma work.
That rehab, we used to nickname it trauma camp because it's like you have a class called trauma drama. You have like trauma eggs. It's like all deep trauma work. So how long did you spend at the refuge?
Another 60 days. Total, I think I added up and it was like 190 something days
Wow.
within a year because this is from March of 2024 to March of 2025.
Where was your mindset in this third rehab? What had finally clicked for you? Where you're like, yeah, I might be young, but I'm an alcoholic and I have to get sober.
Well, so I knew everything that I had to do. I had been through rehab twice. I'd done the recovery meetings. I've started doing step work. I've started doing things with my therapist and things like that. So it's like I knew all the things that I had to do. It was just like this third time was giving me the space to do it and kind of the last push. I genuinely could have died on that
Yeah.
last withdrawal. It was awful.
Did you
Like,
feel hopeless
oh
like
yeah.
between the three rehabs? Like I
Mm,
just can't stay sober. I don't know what the issue is. And
yeah.
then you just had a change of heart in the third
Mhm.
rehab.
It was more, I don't even know if it was like hopeless that I can't stop drinking. It's that hopeless. I was like hopeless that I'll never be able to drink again. I just
Ooh.
kept trying to convince myself that I still could. And so by the third time, by that third relapse where I was just genuinely like, I always say that I was on my deathbed. It was like, okay, no, seriously, I cannot drink anymore. Like, if I do this again, I will die. Because that's my thing. I've discovered through therapy and step work and all the things, I drink to die. I can't stop until I'm literally passed out or everything is ran out. There's no stopping
That's
me.
a really scary kind of
Mm-hmm.
drinker. Like
Yeah.
that's not
Mhm.
something to take lightly.
Yeah.
So you're 22 now?
Yep, 22. But when I got out of rehab the third time, I did things like totally differently. My parents told me that I couldn't go and live back with them, which was like distressing because I had lost my apartment that I had before this. I didn't want to go to an Oxford house. I didn't know what to do. My parents were like, we're going to find you a sober living and you're going to go. I went to a place called His House for Her, which is a sober living, and it's for only women. And it genuinely was the best thing that I could have done. Getting out of rehab and going into a sober place with only sober people. Every other time I had gotten out, I just went straight back to either my parents' house, which I had access to
Yeah.
alcohol, or I had an apartment the second time, which just had full reign freedom, which is dangerous for me. Going back to being arrested, when I was in rehab this third time, I got put on probation while I was in there. The court case had finally done its thing, and I pled no contest, so I got 3 years of probation. And so that honestly has also been a huge factor in my sobriety because jail scares me really bad now. And I'm not trying to go back, so you will not catch me violating probation. I went into sober living. I started going to meetings there. I started like hanging out with the women there. I was able to find a job while I was there. It was just like another place that like granted me a little bit more freedom, but where I had to take drug tests, I had to be accountable, and I think if I didn't have that, I would be at a different spot. I don't think I would have relapsed this time. I can't like say that for sure, but like I had a lot more protective factors that pushed me to be better than I would have been without them. I stayed there for about 2 or 3 months. I think 3. So when I left there, I was 5 months sober. I got my own place. Even after I left there, I've stayed like the kind of housing that it is. It's not just like the house. They have an office where they do all the meetings, they do classes, and it's all women. So they have trauma groups and things like that. So I still stay in contact with them, and it also keeps me really accountable. So my sponsor works there. So I go and see her once a week. I sometimes go to meetings there, things like that. I just really try and stay involved with that part of my life.
And fellowshipping is the most important part of
Yeah.
recovery. How did you go about trying to find friends? Well, friends your age in recovery.
It's hard.
Such a big age gap.
I remember talking to one of my friends from the third rehab, and I was like, I'm never gonna find anybody my age. I was just so deep in self pity and anger and
Well,
denial
it's
and all the
not only
things. Like,
self pity, but it's like what you're seeing when you walk into these rooms.
mm.
There's only so many times where you're like, okay, I'm gonna be alone forever.
I think like after I moved out of there and started going out on my own, I started going to young people's group. I was actually surprised by how many different people my age were there. There are the handful of like us that are younger. I don't even think it's about finding people my age. It's just finding people that are at the same spot in life as I am.
And I met you, I met Jasmine, and I met a bunch of other people in our friend group. And I was like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna have friends.
I know.
I was so excited. I was
Yeah,
like, I'm gonna have sober friends.
yeah, because
It's
it's so
crazy.
hard. It's so hard being young in like recovery, and people like okay, as being a woman in recovery, it makes it twice as hard.
What has been the greatest gift in sobriety?
Probably being able to help other people. I've definitely learned a lot about myself. Like having a clear mind, a clear head, and like actually being able to like make and set and achieve goals. It's allowed me like time and space to like work with myself and work on myself to learn more about myself. And I found that one of the things that I really like to do, which I could never have done when I was drinking, is help people.
You would say that this is worth all of everything,
Oh, it's
all the
worth
struggles, all of
everything. I'm so glad that I went through what I went through. Because if I hadn't continued to, like I said this earlier, if I hadn't continued to have gone back out, I wouldn't be here right now.
and now you're 20
Mhm.
and pretty much have the rest of your life ahead of you.
Yeah.
Although you still have to navigate sobriety from an outsider perspective, you're doing everything that you need to be doing. How have you seen the way that you're interacting with people in your life change from when you were in addiction versus now that you're sober?
I was very defensive when I was in like addiction. Even if you weren't like coming at me, I would always take everything the wrong way. I was always putting on this face of who I was trying to be, all these things. Whereas now it's like I call myself out for my stuff. I'm just very honest in the way that I speak and the way that I talk to people and talk about people. I don't gossip anymore. I don't try and start things with people. I don't want any beef. I just want peace. Whereas I used to start things with everybody.
How are you seeing yourself in this relationship with your current partner?
The guy that I'm dating now, he's been sober for over a year.
So you're in what seems like a very healthy relationship now
I am.
with a man.
Yeah.
With a man.
With a man.
Is that weird for you?
It is. I'm not grown in any way, but I've grown. I have grown. And I'm growing still. And my boyfriend now and I like grow together. We don't try and fix each other. Which like before all the guys that I've dated, even when I was like actively drinking and using, I was trying to fix everybody else
Yeah.
so that they wouldn't try and fix me. I am a fixer by heart. Like I need to fix everybody and everything, but I don't try and fix him. And we do nothing but grow together, and we just live together and do the thing. And we put our recovery first, like even
Yeah.
above each other. Like our recovery, our
Comes
own
first.
recovery comes first.
It has. How did you know that you were ready to like do something like be in a relationship? Because in recovery, that is such a big decision.
So I was a little less than 10 months sober. So I was like 9.5 months sober. And he fell into my lap.
Literally.
Like, I was really against it. And then something would happen where it would just be, no, you're ready. He was a year and a half sober when I met him. And when I had heard like about how he had talked about me at meetings and stuff in such like a sweet, kind way. Yeah. Yeah. And like we definitely I don't think I should have waited, but I definitely could have and grown more before we started dating.
You did a ton of work.
Mhm.
Like the months even before Houston came. Like when I first met you, you were so quiet and so timid. It was so incredible to watch you on that journey. And I think you had done a ton of work. Obviously, the work's never done.
Oh yeah.
But before you met Houston, you were in just a better spot in general. Like it seemed
Yeah.
like you had gotten more confident in yourself. You finally started to get your bearings
Mhm.
around being sober and being in recovery.
It's really hard. And it took me a lot to get there. Even though I just have a year sober, there was a whole year before this that I was trying my freaking hardest. It was 3 stints in rehab, and that alone was a lot of working on myself. And
Yeah.
even though I wasn't getting the sobriety part right, I was doing all like the things like mentally and physically that I needed to do. So there was a lot of growth before I actually my final sober date. And I have such a like a strong support system rooted in a bunch of really lovely women that like I can be honest, if things were to hit the fan with him, I know that I would be okay. And
Yeah.
that's what it's
That's the biggest thing. But like I said, like it's one of those things where you're either going to grow or you go. And not everybody's recovery story is the same by any means. And just because something works for you doesn't mean it's going to work for someone else. It's different for everybody. Some people get in relationships early in sobriety and thrive,
yeah.
thrive. And some people go right back out
Mhm.
and you never know. It's like when you're sober, it's like finding the trust in yourself to be willing to test the waters.
Yeah. And like I think a fear is healthy.
Yeah.
Like I remember I was leaving rehab the last time and it was like everybody kept telling me that that fear of relapse is good.
I
Like
was
if you
scared shitless.
yeah, because if you go out there all cocky and all like confident, you are bound to fail. Like of course there should be like a sense of confidence in your sobriety, but the second that you're confident, that's when you lose grip on reality.
So, what are your plans now?
So I'm back in college. I'm doing online classes and I plan to be a peer recovery specialist. And I want to work in rehabs. I definitely want to work in recovery settings. And I'm getting my bachelor's in psychology. It's not like for sure, but I might get my master's and try and be a therapist. But that's just an idea.
Did you ever think that any of this would be possible for you?
Absolutely not. Even up until right after I left rehab this last time, I was like, I'm never going back to college. There's no way. I'm just going to get a bunch of certifications. I'm just going to kind of do whatever the wind takes me. I'm going to do whatever I want to do. Since I had dropped out, I didn't know if
Transcripts and everything.
yeah, like
Yeah.
I didn't know how they were going to look. And so I just applied on a whim and I got in. And so it's just been steady rolling.
Your life will literally do a 180 in
Yeah.
sobriety. You put down that one thing and you gain everything. If you could go back to 14-year-old you now, you tell her.
Ooh, I don't know. I wouldn't stop her from drinking. I
Mm.
don't think I would because I think with all of the things that I went through because of my drinking, I would not be the person I am today. And I'm really proud of who I am today. I also wouldn't learn the things that I have. The people that were in my life wouldn't have let me go, and they needed to let me go. And my parents wouldn't have learned the things that they learned either. Because my mom is fully educated in recovery and addiction and all the things now.
What would you say to someone who's our age and is like back and forth between trying to figure their shit out if they have a problem or not?
It's really hard, but don't do it for anybody else. Do it for you. Do it for the person that took that first drink. Because that's who I do it for is little 14-year-old me. Like I wouldn't stop her, but I do this every day because of her.
Is there anything else you want to add?
Probably just stop being so hard on I'm my biggest critic. So just stop being so hard on yourself and it does get easier.
That was an incredible episode. That Sarah, thank you so much for coming on. I've loved having you on. It's so much fun.
Thank
And I
you.
think people are gonna love to hear your story because I'm very impressed. As always, we have so many more episodes and so many more interviews coming up, and I'm excited to share it with you guys. Young and sober for the sober confident, the sober curious, and the sober ish. Thank you so much for watching. Please take care of yourself, and we will see you in the next one. Love you. Bye.